Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to all the participants. Welcome to the first Academy of Sciences Malaysia ArtScience webinar series. My name is Emilia Jutniza and I will be your MC for today. This webinar aims to cultivate appreciation of arts toward a cultivation of science and consequently build a community that explores art science. This webinar is divided into two sessions. The first session will showcase the panelists' perspective in expresses art science through their works. The second session will feature two jury members who will provide their insights on the evaluation process of ArtScience 2020 Prize. The arts and sciences are supposed to be on the two opposite ends of the spectrums. The arts are subjective, open-ended and emotional. The sciences are rational, objective and dispassionate. The fusion of the two is necessary to bridge the gap. To hear about the amalgamation of the arts and sciences into art science, joining us today are Yang Berusaha AR Kasturi, co-chair of the ASM Art Science 2020 Prize Task Force. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Seri Dr. Mazlan Osman, chair of the ASM Art Science Steering Committee. Our lineup of speakers for today, Dr. Ahmad Hanif Ahmad Baharin, Mr. Muhammad Nasir Baharuddin, Dr. Rupish Sitaran, Dr. Muhammad Hafizuddin Muhammad Yusof, Dr. Clarissa Ailing Lee, and Associate Professor Hasnul Jisaidun. Our ASM Expert Network, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Yang Berusaha AR Hijaz Kasturi is a well-known Malaysian architect for his iconic buildings including Telecom Tower, Tabung Haji Building and many more. He is also a fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia and the co-chair of ASM Art Science Initiative and 2020 Prize Task Force. Without further ado, let us welcome Yang Berusaha AR Hijaz Kasturi, co-chair of ASM Art Science 2020 Prize Task Force, to deliver his welcoming remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning to you all. Yang berbahagia Profesor Emerita Datuk Seri Mazlan Osman, Chair of ASM Art Science Steering Committee. Our speakers for today, Dr. Ahmad Hanif Ahmad Bahrain, Mr. Muhammad Nasir Baharuddin, Dr. Rupish Sitaran, and Dr. Muhammad Hafizuddin Muhammad Yusof. Panelists of discussions, Dr. Clarissa Ailing Lee and Associate Professor Hasnul Jisaidun. ASM Experts Network and all the attendees. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Academy of Science of Malaysia, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone for taking some precious time of your weekend to attend this webinar. As the nation's science, technology, and innovations, or ITI thought leader, ASM has immense responsibility to the society and nation. Our commitment lies firmly in fostering a culture of excellence on STI in Malaysia. Apart from providing advice to the government on matters relating to STI, ASM is also taking an important role in promoting scientific literacy among the nation for better understanding of science towards nurturing scientifically literate and cultured society. In view of this, ASM conducts several science excellences programs to recognize the achievements of the scientific community and contribution in science, as well as to inculcate interest and increase knowledge in science among the public. Among the flagship programs conducted by ASM are ArtScience Initiative, Top Research Scientist Malaysia, National Science Challenge and many other researchers. Ladies and gentlemen, in recognition of the amalgamation of art and science, ASM has established ASM Art Science in 2019 as the initiative to recognize talents and appreciate projects or artworks that embody the union of arts and science. This initiative was launched officially on the 4th of December 2019 and aims to nurture creativity at the convergence of the arts and sciences, with the objective to promote appreciation of arts towards acculturation of science among Malaysians. This can help in strengthening the research endeavor at the interface of arts and science. Since its establishment in December 2019 until 2021, the Academy is in the pioneer organizations that recognize these art science works in Malaysia through its program, which are ASM ArtScience Prize and ArtScience Engagement Programs. Last year, ASM have organized ASM ArtScience Prize competitions to award the prize to outstanding works that embody the union of art and science. 13 participants out of 65 applications were shortlisted to showcase their creative works in an exhibition. Moreover, a big thank you to the 6 members of jury headed by Professor Dr. Ahmad Haji Zainuddin, together with the rest of the team consisting of Architect Muhammad Pital Ma'ruf, Associate Professor Hasnol Saidon, Dr. Zaidi Mat Isa, Dr. Clarissa Ailing Lee, and Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Nasir bin Hashim. From these shortlisted participants, Dr. Ahmad Hanif Ahmad Baharudin and his team emerged as the winner, followed by Dr. Ruspis Sitaran as the Rising Star Award winner. However, due to the ongoing pandemic, this exhibition has been scheduled to a new date and will be held virtually. Following this, the 2021 Art Science Transcending Arts and Sciences webinar series intends to take you closer to the ASM ArtScience Prize 2020 winners, to grasp on their perspectives of art science through their works. The winner, Dr. Ahmad Hanif Ahmad Baharudin, and his team have placed the art and science elements in their work with the title of Digital Tropical Breathing the Waves. As for the Rising Star Award winner, Dr. Rupesh Sitaran and his team had chosen to utilize another form of technology and implement the art and science through their projects entitled Artificial Autonomy and the Questions of Subjectivity in Artificial Intelligence. Apart from the winners, the members of the jury will also share their experiences and perspectives on the evaluation process. This webinar, which merges 2 important components into one, is hoped to spark the inspiration and challenge more people into producing the works of art science. Ladies and gentlemen, you may want to experience and observe all the participants' works and learn on their definition of art and science. In continuation with this webinar, ASM Art Science Initiative will have more engagement programs, and we are working together with Maybank Foundation to prepare a virtual exhibition that will showcase all the 13 works of the shortlisted participants in November 2021. We hope to see you there to celebrate your hard works. With this opportunity, I would like to thank the ASM secretariats and everyone who have contributed to their energy and time towards the successful of this webinar. I wish this event would inspire all of you to create and learn more in merging the arts and science as one definite component. Before I end my speech, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to members of the Art Science Task Force, in which I am the co-chairman, and the others are fellow academicians emeritus, Professor Dr. Muhammad Awang, the co-chairman of the ASM Task Force, Senior Fellow Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Saleh Muhammad Noor, Dr. Roslina Ismail from University of Malaysia Cultural Center, Puan Zalina Anwar from National Art Gallery, Puan Zaleha Reza, co-founder of Makerland, and last but not least, Senior Fellow Academicians, Professor Emerita, Dato' Sri Dr. Madlan Osman, being the most important individual who not only mooted the idea for the art science competition, but heavily financed this program, donated the prize money, the cups, the coming publications, and several other programs. We hope to get more sponsors so that we could develop this program bigger and better. Please join me in showing our appreciation to her by clapping your hands. With this, I wish you well, keep in good health, and enjoying this morning webinar session. Thank you.
Thank you, Yang Berusaha A.R. Hijaz, for the insightful remarks. Next, for the forum session, I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Dato' Dr. Madlan Osman to introduce the panelists and moderate the session. But before I pass the floor to the moderator, let me share a few things about her. She is a senior fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia and was the Deputy Director General of the United Nations Office at Vienna. Currently, she is the Director of the International Science Council Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific and the Chairperson of the ASM Art Science Steering Committee. Allow me to present to you Academician Emeritus Professor Dato' Sri Dr. Madlan Osman. The floor is yours, Dato'.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Thank you. Thank you, Mia, and thank you, Architect Hijaz, for your very kind words. Of course, this whole leadership of the process of the ArtScience Prize and everything wouldn't have gone anywhere without Architect Hijaz. He provided that beacon, that guiding light for all of us. And so thank you, Hijaz, for playing that role for us, and in the future too, I hope. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me add my warm welcome to all of you to the first of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia webinar series on transcending the arts and sciences. Now, for some of you out there, this day has been too long. Yeah, it's taken a long time in coming. But as you all know, and mentioned by Architect Hijaz, the worldwide pandemic befell us within a couple of months of the launch of the ArtScience Prize in December 2019. Now, almost none of the activities in the timeline of our strategic planning went according to plan. Our activities went from being physical to partly virtual to completely virtual like it is today. As you know, even now, it's hard to fully imagine what the future of the art and science world will be in the context of the so-called new normal. So, as we say, this is the first prize of its kind to be established in Malaysia. People say it takes audacity to establish something like this, and indeed, treading a multidisciplinary field is difficult, particularly when it involves fields that prefer to sit on the opposite ends of the spectrum, as it is more comfortable to do so. But like in the past, as in the age of Leonardo da Vinci, where there was no clear-cut line between the arts and sciences, the future will not allow us to remain in silos. Not if we want to get the best solutions to the problems, to our problems, global or otherwise, not if we want to get the best creative outputs that make our world a singularly better place for all of us. Can somebody switch off somebody is speaking? Ladies and gentlemen, in this first of the webinar series, we are featuring the winners of the 2020 ArtScience Prize. We have also invited 2 members of the ArtScience Prize jury who will deliberate on the evaluation process and outcomes. Now, I'd like to alert you that we will be conducting 2 polls somewhere during this webinar, so please do respond. So without further ado, let me now introduce the winners. The winner of the 2020 ArtScience Prize. As you can see from your program, this is the collaborative effort of 2 people, Dr. Hanif and Mr. Nasir. Now, Dr. Hanif Bahrain has a PhD in interaction design from the University of Queensland, Australia. He is a research fellow at the Institute of IR 4.0 at UKM. His collaborator is Mr. Nasir Baharuddin, who's an award-winning artist and also a writer and leader in art science collaborative programs. So I would like to call upon both of them to make their presentations. Thank you.
Hi and good morning. My name is Hanif Bahrain, and today I'm going to talk about our project, Digital Tropical Breathing the Waves. Our group consists of Encik Nasir, Hafiz, and I. The project is done in consultation with all these experts here. Before we go on, I would like to introduce our collective. So we have a name now. We are called Digit, and the G is stylized as 8 to represent the original 8 group members. So we have Dr. Afdal, who is doing research on human-computer interaction at UiTM, Anwar Suhaimi, the Bakat Muda Sezaman winner in 2019, Hafiz is an electric and electronic engineer, and Encik Nasir used to be a curator at Gallery Serdang UPM. Dr. Shah and Dr. Shurin, they are from the Design and Architecture faculty at UPM, and Dr. Putri and I, we are from Institute of IR 4.0. Dr. Putri's expertise is in big data analytics, while I'm doing research in human-computer interaction. Now, let me tell you how it all started. In 2018 or 2019, Dr. Putri presented her research on big data and renewable energy at the Institute of Visual Informatics, which is now known as the Institute of IR 4.0. Her research collected oceanic wave heights data near Tioman Island for 2 years. And the data collected was used to predict wave heights using big data analytics. The main aim of the research is to see if the sea near Tioman is suitable to be used to harvest electricity from oceanic waves. In 2019, I was asked to create an art exhibition for a visual informatics conference at our institute. So we were asked to create an artwork that highlights the research done at the institute. Since I heard Dr. Putri's presentation, I was really intrigued by her research. So we decided to use Putri's research and we assembled a team. Our group consists of 8 people from various disciplines. We have people from the arts, architecture, engineering, data science, interaction design, and human-computer interaction. And 2 people from our group are from fine arts background, and 6 have experience in creating and exhibiting artworks. Prior to the digital tropical project, I have exhibited in Nyawa exhibition at Gallery Serdang for several years. So I'm quite familiar with the process that was used by Encik Nasir for Nyawa at Gallery Serdang. So this is our process. So what we do mainly is we start with discourse. We will have a multidisciplinary discourse. We look at Dr. Putri's work and discuss the meaning of the work from the perspectives of our own field. And we try to expand the meaning of the research done by Dr. Putri through our multidisciplinary discourse. By focusing on the meaning first, then we try to think of the form to represent the meaning, and this is an iterative process. As you can see here we have the brainstorming that we did, and once we decided on the meaning and the form, we actually went to have a site visit, and this is the artist's impression of the work that we're going to do and the sketch. I want to emphasize here that this is not what we do. We do not take what we know or learn from the arts and then combine it with knowledge from science or scientific method and turn it into an artwork. So what we actually do, we do projects. So in our projects, we merge the knowledge from various disciplines. So we are truly transdisciplinary projects. So we have disciplines from architecture, big data analytics, physical computing, arts, artificial intelligence, social science, human-computer interaction, and participatory design. And from our projects, we came up with documentations, publication, and exhibition. In our digital tropical project, we highlighted the architecture of a 300-year-old house, Istana Puteri Bongsu, that made it suitable for tropical climate. The house was built on steel that encourages airflow so that it's cooler inside the house during hot days. And the steel allows the house to be used even though during flooding. The area under the house is lit up using LED strips. The brightness of the LED corresponds to the oceanic wave heights data from Dr. Putri's Tioman project. The higher the wave heights data, the brighter the LED. As you can see here, the light underneath the house is pulsing, brightening up and dimming according to the wave height data collected from Dr. Putri's work. So in this work, we explore how humans can design and use technology that is in sync with nature instead of adopting the paradigm of overcoming nature through technology. So the architecture of the house is working in sync with nature. This is much like Dr. Putri's Tioman project, which is trying to make technology work in sync with oceanic waves so that we can create energy. Most technology created today destroys nature and try to conquer nature for human benefit. But now we are moving towards having to create technology that work in sync with nature due to climate change. So the day before the competition was supposed to close, Dr. Encik Nasir contacted me and asked, have you submitted the application. I have known about the competition for some time, but I have forgotten. So I submitted it the day before it was closed. And we are really thankful that we won this award, and especially to ASM and to those who champion the ArtScience Initiative. So what's next for us? We are currently doing a project on the process of recovery from COVID-19. This project is based on the research by Dr. Shurin that looks at the condition of low-cost housing occupants during lockdown. And we want to create an online exhibition as information. And another project that we're looking into is doing a participatory design project to create a fully online exhibition. And with that, I would like to conclude my talk. Encik Nasir will be available to answer your questions during the Q&A session. And we would like to express our gratitude again to ASM for the award, and thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nasir. Now, that is the winning entry of the ArtScience 2020 prize. We also have another category of prize, which is the Rising Star Award. And the winner of this Rising Star Award, I have only two names here, but they will introduce the rest of the team. There are any, is Dr. Rupesh Sitaran and Dr. Muhammad Hafizuddin Muhammad Yusuf. Let me briefly say who Dr. Rupesh is. Dr. Rupesh is an educator, researcher, curator, and an artist at the Multimedia University. His area of specialization is the Malaysian contemporary art, new media, cultures, and curatorial practice. His writings have been published in several local and international journals and magazines, while Dr. Hafizuddin, who is also a lecturer at the Multimedia University, teaches in the media arts at the Faculty of Creative Multimedia. His interests include data science, machine learning, intelligent-driven computer interaction, computer vision, and image processing. So let's hear from Rupesh and Hafizuddin. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us as part of the seminar this morning. It's a real honor to be part of the panel. And our project is entitled Artificial Autonomy and the Question of Subjectivity in AI. This is a project that I worked together with my colleague from Multimedia University, Dr. Hafizuddin, and I want to start by speaking about our friendship, my relationship with Dr. Hafiz. This is a project that we worked on as our, to some extent you can say, as our hobby and our mutual interest in thinking about the technology of artificial intelligence in terms of our research interests. So my perspective coming as from an art practice, and also Dr. Hafiz coming from an engineering background, we have never actually come together in thinking about our mutual interest in terms of research. But we were close friends before then, and we have known each other for some time, and we have always been good buddies from our early postgraduate years back then. So this is an image where I was gracefully invited by Dr. Hafiz's family for a dinner over his place. So to some extent, we built on this relationship for quite some time, and at one point we managed to figure out a sort of a mutual interest that we had. So most of our research was done based on the sort of from the living space of Dr. Hafiz. So as you can see here, this is his house, and this is where we were doing most of the work. And I think Dr. Hafiz can speak a bit about the living space here. What are we looking at?
Yeah, if you see, there is a birthday banner. Okay, so we left the birthday banner for 3 birthday occasions because our birthdays are of my daughter, my son, and me separated by a few weeks apart. So that's why you see the birthday banners are still there.
Yes, indeed. It was a really pleasant experience actually working from a living space of Dr. Hafiz. As you can see here, a lot of exchange and debate and discussion took place there, just right in the living space, and also in the dining table and whatnot. This was our laboratory, we can say. A lot of discussions took place, a lot of experimentation, and also configurations, trying to figure out what is the best way to present this work, actually came out of this living space.
A lot of coding.
Yes, a lot of coding, definitely. And this is what we're looking at here, Dr. Hafiz. This is your living space.
Yeah.
So again, this is our workspace, and this is where we actually conceived the actual presentation for the Art Science exhibition. So, as much as the project goes, the actual project is actually what we do is we started to think about the question of subjectivity in autonomous technology. My background and interest coming from the arts, I was critical towards the technology, especially autonomous technology such as artificial intelligence and how it's being implemented in solving real world problems. So I was critical towards this, and the question of subjectivity is something that I was gravitating towards. And at that point, that's when Dr. Hafiz's interest and expertise in artificial intelligence came across, and we managed to work together to bring this research forward. So what we did was we looked at the most subjective subject matter that we could find and tried to use artificial intelligence to compute those subjective data. So in this case, we took 2,425 works of Malaysian paintings that was auctioned for the past 10 years, and we tried to use the artificial intelligence to learn and quantify these 2,425 works into 3 color clusters, namely RGB. So the process of this, how did this go about, is something that Dr. Hafiz will explain later on. So as you can see there, this is the catalog that we had. The information was extracted from the catalogs of all these auction houses for the past 10 years. It was later then used as the data for the machine learning of the artificial intelligence. Dr. Hafiz, yep, I can pass it over to you.
Okay, so those images that you see in the previous slides, okay, we use Orange data mining software, okay, and send 2,425 images to a hosted server where they host variations of machine learning algorithms, pre-trained machine learning models. Okay, so as a result, we get 2,048 extra features for each image that we send to the server. Okay, so this process is called the image embedding. Okay, so we use pre-trained deep learning models, okay, and get the numerical features from the images. All right, and then we can you go to next slide? Okay, and then for 2,048 values, okay, that we get for each image, okay, so we quantize the value into 3 color components, RGB, red, green, and blue. Okay, for example, if the value is between 0 to 0.33, okay, we will draw red dot. Okay, and if the value is 0.34 to 0.66, we will draw green. 0.67 to 1.0, we will draw blue. So we have two other variations here, okay, that use the same mechanism, okay, to quantize value into the 3 color components. Next. Okay, here we have variations of visualizations algorithm. Okay, Dr. Rupesh want to.
Yeah, this one is to some extent what actually it ends up with this sort of patterns and mosaic. It's actually a data visualization. The numbers that is actually being quantified from reading these paintings is then translated into these forms of visualization. So we tried with various possibilities, various combinations that produces various sorts of visualizations, and later on we try to think about how do we process this sort of visualization, and in what way we can reanalyze again these sorts of visualization, these inputs from this machine learning.
So each image or each painting will have a unique identity or unique pattern.
Yes, yeah. Unique mosaic.
Mosaic, yeah.
for each of these paintings. So although it looks similar, we had 2,000 over mosaics. They look almost same, but each and every one of them are unique and individual on their own. So what this meant was, so we had this research, we had the data, we had this output. So one of the challenges that we had is like when we wanted to participate in art science, although that wasn't the intention why we worked on the project, but we thought this is an opportunity for us to showcase this project and also to engage in some kind of a discussion about the ideas we had. We then into the problem of actually thinking about how do we actually present this particular project or this particular research that we are looking at and the sort of questions that we are trying to evoke here. So these are some of the sample iterations that we had in terms of trying to visualize, trying to present the method or the sort of settings that we want in order to present the actual process and the sort of questions that we want to ask. So one thing that became very apparent to us is like the machine learning aspect is a very important aspect and a crucial aspect that we wanted to talk about. So that is why we end up in terms of this setting that we had, that we presented during the exhibition, which is we had a actual machine learning process taking place live during the setting. So what you see here is 3 screens, and then you can see the most closer to us is like 2 screens placed back each other. So what you see here is the one that is closer to us is the machine learning, is the brain, and it's overlooking towards the images that's being flashed on the far end. And the machine is actually looking at those images and learning and turning it into a mosaic that will be displayed on the back end that's closer to us on the screen here. So, and we had a tape on the floor to mark out the learning space where it's taking place. And importantly, we deliberately leave it open, so we want people to walk in between to interfere with the learning process. To some extent, it's like contaminating the learning process with the sort of subjectivity or the possibilities that actually contaminate the data, or to say like, you know, the data of actually looking at the painting. So these are the processes, as you can see, the more images from our installation that we presented. And lastly, I would like to present the video from our presentation. So as you can see, when somebody walks in, interferes with the learning process, the machine actually detects the person who's actually interfering, who actually walks in between the learning process that's taking place between the machines. So it's like some sort of interactive installation where you actually participate or to some extent interfere or contaminate the actual learning process that's taking place. To some extent, it's in a way speaking about the sort of a subjectivity that actually is learning space. So that is all we have for our presentation today. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed our presentation.
Okay, thank you all.
So, okay, it says they have to unmute myself. Okay, I think you heard me. Thank you, Rupesh, and thank you, Hafizuddin. Now, in a competition like this, the jury to choose the winners is of vital importance. As mentioned by architect Ijaz, we appointed a 6-member jury. As he told you, it was chaired by Professor Dato' Sri Ahmad Zainuddin of University College Yayasan Pahang. We have invited 2 of them today. The first is I'm going to invite Hasnul Saadun of USM. Now, Hasnul is Associate Professor of Media Arts at USM. He has contributed to the local art and academic scenes under various capacities. Under his creative career, he has won many international and local art awards. Now, I've been working with Hasnul on the art and science philosophy approach, or whatever you want to call it, since 1997, Hasnul?
Yeah.
So if you think that the art science idea just came in 2019, sorry, when we launched the ArtScience Prize, you are very, very wrong. We have gone back 23 years, and we've had already 3 other exhibitions with the National Art Gallery. That's what it was called at the time. So Hasnul is my long-term collaborator, and I know he's going to be my collaborator again forever.
Inshallah.
until the sun sets on both of us, Hasnul?
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So I'd like to invite Hasnul to give maybe a little bit of overview, Hasnul, on the evaluation process. At the same time, we have also come up with a montage of different pictures, which we will show you as Hasnul speaks. Please, Hasnul, take the floor. Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Datuk Sri. Datuk Sri is my science sister, akak saya lah, ya, partner in crime, so to speak. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me to be one of the members of the jury. It was an honor. Okay, today I will give a summary of the judging process that took place from 28th till 30th of September 2020 at the ASM building. Bear in mind that I am recalling an event that took place nearly a year ago, so probably will be a bit sketchy. The Secretariat received, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 65 submissions. 9 submissions could not be installed due to, I don't know, some unforeseen circumstances. So we ended up with 56 entries. The participants were requested to put in categories according to the statistic given to me by the Secretariat. 41 came under visual art, followed by 9 under conceptual art, 7 applied art, 6 performing art, and 2 literary art. Okay, allow me to introduce, I think the jury has been introduced by Datuk Sri Mazlan already. Maybe the roles of the jury. So we were initially requested to appoint a chairman. So we collectively appointed Professor Dr. Ahmad Haji Zainuddin as the chairman of the jury. And then we were also requested to develop an evaluation rubric. We were given an evaluation rubric by the Secretariat. So we did some changes to the original evaluation rubric. Then we did the evaluation and shortlisting and select the winners. Okay, I will share a bit about the evaluation rubric. Large chunk of the evaluation, 50%, goes to inventiveness, originality, uniqueness, and innovation. So that's a large chunk. 20% goes to presentation. That includes all the visual elements, the storytelling, the narrative, the reports, and so on and so forth. 10% goes to 3 aspects. 1, economic and humanistic benefits to community. Secondly, sustainability and environmental concerns. Thirdly, universal values and global relevancies. a bit on the process. So during the first day, what we did, initially we did individual evaluation, all the members of the jury on their own, in their own pacing, in their own time, looked through all the entries, the reports, the posters, the presentations, everything on their own. And then we came back at the end of the day to tabulate our evaluation and came up with a short list of 13 entries. And then we requested to get more information, rather direct information from the participants. So we requested the Secretariat to contact all the participants, shortlisted participants, for us to be able to talk to them, to have a live presentation, to give them the opportunity to present their projects, and to give us opportunity to sort of have a question and answer session with them, and eventually to help us to do our evaluation. So during the next day, we spent, I think, the next day for the interview session, the presentation session. It was a very important session for me, very insightful also, a learning process for me as well. So from there, we again shortlisted from 13 to, I think, if I can recall, about 4 or 5 top entries. They were, I think, 3 top entries. I think I want to honor them by mentioning the 13 top entries first. Farah Ashila binti Samsuri from GDP Architects, with Afiq Durrani from University Malaysia Terengganu, with their project title Before Your Very Eyes. And then Dr. Rupesh and Dr. Fizuddin from Multimedia University. We saw the presentation. And then May Tasnim binti Nur Azaman from One Academy, with Alif Haikal from UITM. Muhammad Syukur bin Rahmat and Nur Azani. Dr. Ahmad Hanif, we saw his presentation. Dr. Muhammad Fazil, Associate Professor Dr. Nur Suhaili binti Abu Bakar, Tengku Aini Soraya, Tengku Sulaiman from University Sultan Zainal Abidin. I know Naim bin Azizul from University of Bristol, Dr. Lim Kok Yong, Chua Chong Yan, Associate Professor Dr. Khairul Azril Ismail and Nick Anis Kartini from UCSI, Associate Professor Dr. Shurin and Iskandar Khalifa from UPM, Dr. Husinaidi Haji Abdul Hamid from Multimedia University, Dr. Afiq Durrani and Muhammad Sukardi from UMT. So congratulations to the 13 shortlisted entries. From there, we discuss, we select the winners. There were few, I think 3 or 4 top contenders other than the winners. I think I can recall Chua Chong Yan, who came up with a very interesting project as well. So we were deliberating about his work as well. During the judging, we heard different interpretations of art science, which I think is very good and very interesting, because we need to celebrate different takes on art science instead of limiting the definition. Different frameworks as well. Of course, some hinted on epistemological dimension of art science, basically questioning the meaning or how we define and conceptualize knowledge itself. Some look into the cosmological dimension, like the winning work, looking into the cosmology as well, on IT, on artificial intelligence, on educational dimension of art science, sustainability, and also I think mental health advocacy. Few strategies, interesting strategies used, mostly visualization of data derived from scientific methods as a way to come up with a something that look like a modern art, something that appear to be to look like a modern art. So they visualize, illustrate, or narrate scientific findings in a form of art. We also saw the use of technology, current technology, in coming up with cultural products. And I think the best entry, like the winner, synergizing research expertise in various art and science fields to propose a new artistic and scientific experience, more of creating an experience rather than specifically making an artwork, creating an experience, and that experience can be scientific as well can be artistic in regards to a particular phenomena. I think that's about it. That's my report. Congratulations to the winners, Dr. Ahmad Hanif and Muhammad Nasir. Also Dr. Rupesh. I learned a lot from their entries, and actually I became a fan of their projects. So again, thank you to ASM. Thank you to Datuk Sri for inviting me to be a part. I think Dr. Clarissa will discuss more about the winning works after this. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hasnul. Thank you. And as Hasnul says, we are now calling on Clarissa, Dr. Clarissa Eileen, to say a few words on the judging process, on the judging itself. Clarissa Eileen is a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Creative Arts at University of Malaya. She has researched and published in many topics relating to art science. Now, I want to tell you that she has recently published a book called Art Science, A Curious Education this year with publisher Gerak Budaya. So go out and buy it, everyone. So please, Clarissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Maslan, and thank you, everybody, for being here, and also to the organizers for inviting me to give my view. Seeing that we're also kind of running short of time, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible so we have more chance to discuss this. So what I'm going to do actually is to kind of give a brief overview as well as a sort of like a bird's eye view, as well as a more particular, more particular discussion on two of the projects that have been highlighted in today's session. So first, I want to actually go to the big picture, which is to think about art science, which has been raised by our speakers earlier on, and what it actually means. Right, we tend to see art science as a sort of like two figures in this two culture matrix. But in reality, art science has come a long way since that it's no longer just an oppositional conversation of two binaries, but rather it actually can be seen as a space of confluence and consilience. And this space of confluence and consilience is actually what we are looking out for in the submissions for this ArtScience Prize. In fact, ultimately, it's this point of confluence and consilience that actually help us decide on what will be the, at least up to this stage, the best representation of art science thinking. Even though we're also very well aware that there is no such thing as a single form of art science thinking. And it comes in as many forms as there are practitioners that are actually involved in trying to shape what that actually means. So firstly, I want to go back a little bit into history. It's also the history from which these two projects that are presented here have actually been drawing from, whether it's done consciously and unconsciously, which is basically the idea of what scientific creativity means, right? For a long time, we always associate arts with being creative. So there's no question about that. We don't actually question what it means to be creative in the arts. But there's always a lot of discussion and talk and even writings. I mean, there's so many works that have been written for decades actually on what scientific creativity actually meant. And a lot of this actually drew from so-called, not just work that are famous in the scientific space, but also work that itself has influenced the imagination of the public. For instance, starting from as the turning point of the, let's say, late 19th century into the 20th century physics, for instance, because the first part of the 20th century, especially the first 30 to 40 years, were basically like the century of physics. So a lot of cutting edge work that was actually coming out of it that influenced the public imagination. And physics is not just the textbook physics that you're all familiar with, because with physics came a lot of other influence that also shaped the work that we today are aware of as being contributory to the whole IR 4.0 framework, which is machine learning, artificial intelligence, and big data, right? All of these actually has very long history that goes back more than a century, except that we probably were not aware that they actually have always been present around us. And then by the time we reached the second half of the 20th century, it became the age of biotechnology or the age of biology. But everything that shaped that actually came also 100 years before, right? Where we actually have developments in the field of genetics, which in a way heralds, even though it's not the beginning of looking at entities that are invisible to the human eye, but it is still sort of at the beginning of thinking about how abstraction actually can be part of what we always have been considered as the organic, right? So with the age of biotechnology, bioinformatics, and then the age of physics as espoused, presented by the imagery that they present in the 20th century, we enter the age of the metaphorical. Basically, what is actually literal, what is actually before our eyes that can actually be observed and described in a very literal sense, take on a very metaphorical meaning, right? And also when we get to from the literal to the metaphorical, we also are in a way slowly moving backwards, even though it might look like it's a forward move, but it's actually going backwards in terms of sort of like causal relations. So you're going from the epistemological and slowly trying to find back what actually is the ontological, because the ontological itself is never very present. I mean, it's not present to our consciousness, even though it's always been present. And this actually also shaped the kind of thinking that came about throughout all the projects that were actually submitted, not just in the two winning projects themselves. So let's go to what these two projects are about, right? On the outset, the two projects look very different, but the reality is that they actually draw a lot from a lot of the similar thinkings that are already present in the disciplines from which they came up from, right? One of it is, as I go back, big data. And I would say the idea of big data was a kind of like a popular buzzword, probably 5 years ago, and maybe even up to this point. And now today, everyone's talking about artificial intelligence as well as machine learning. I would say that these two projects probably may not have come about if not because of the sort of like the critique as well as the question as to what artificial intelligence and big data is about. Even though they both draw on heritage in a very broad sense of the term. One is in Malay house architecture, whereas the other one actually looks at auctionable artworks, right? So when we think about big data and artificial intelligence and machine learning, they don't actually just exist as they need to be mediated, and there has to be a medium from which they actually flow through. And how the mediation and how the medium could look like actually is also the point where art science can actually take place. When I say art science, it means that it's also about techniques and it's also about technology. And when I say technology, is about the way of doing. It's not just technology in a very superficial sense that we understand, about STEM or how we or digital objects or about things that are built, but it's also about how we choose to do things. And it's actually how these two projects choose to do their project and what they use to mediate both the input as well as the output of the project that actually give them a kind of a very interesting philosophical richness, right? Which actually is still underexplored as far as I'm concerned, but which I see as having more room for exploration. And I hope that, of course, these two projects will actually go beyond where they are at, because as far as I'm concerned at this point, they present a very promising beginning, but they're still pretty much at the very beginning stage. So let's go to the first project, which is actually on the wave house. I was actually myself very fascinated by the project because it's very interesting that they took a study on wave as sort of like energy technology. And this is actually one of the energy technology that actually has been explored. Not so much in Malaysia because we actually lack that resource, but it's been explored elsewhere. And to think about how it connects actually to the idea of climate change, also to the idea of disaster, also to the idea of the natural, right? Also to think about architecture and building of resilient architecture, and the idea that resilient architecture is not something that is the outcome of climate change, but actually has already been part of the humanistic memory for a long time. And it's also very interesting that by trying to, is by taking, for instance, what actually has already been present in the heritage as well as the legacy of that is indigenous to Malaysia, and then trying to reshape it using tools that are available within our present technological landscape, right? And also to try and connect ideas and knowledge that similarly come from elsewhere, like thinking about fractals in geometry, which by the way are not even new ideas. Like fractals became popular in the 20th century because of developments in complexity science. But in reality, fractals and all that has actually already existed all like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And the same thing with geometry as well. And they actually represent the very beginning of the way of seeing the world that we understand today, and also the way we shape our scientific framework.
And Dr. Clarissa, your time is almost up. You have 40 seconds, in fact.
Okay.
Thank
and
you.
then the second work itself, what is interesting about it is that it actually questions our kind of like very euphoric take on machine learning, as well as how we ourselves try to reduce what we understand about art into quantifiable forms. Because when we think about digital art and NFTs today, right, there's this idea of how can we create tokens by which we can create new values. But the thing is that what are these new values? And how do these values actually change the way we conceptualize art, not just in terms of how art is valued, but in terms of how we produce art. And the fact that production art is not just, for instance, should actually be limited to predefined professionals. So I actually have a lot more to say, but I can actually probably say what I want to say later during the Q&A to answer some of the questions that are posed. Thank you.
Thank you, Clarissa. Thank you. I think, yeah, I have, so the poll question is coming up. Now, we have half an hour before we wrap up. Now, I think some of you might be wanting to ask of the winners, and I think I'd like to ask both sets of winners, and don't, 1 or 2 minutes each of you, I think there are 4 of you here, to tell us or to tell the audience, what was your personal motivation in involving in this project that you finally submitted for the competition? Just 1 or 2 minutes, please. Shall we start with Hanif?
Hi, so regarding my motivation, although my field of studies is in HCI and interaction design, but I have been studying and developing interactive artwork since I did my master's degree. And I have been exhibiting interactive artwork at computer science conferences. I mean, in quite a few good conferences. So it has always been my passion of creating things. But the opportunity came when our previous director, Prof. Dato' Halimah, wanted to have an art exhibition alongside a computer science conference, which is not usually is not usual in Malaysia. So we took that chance, and since I've been working with Encik Nasir, learning a lot from him, and then we move forward with the project. So I guess that's my motivation, is to create and to continue using my knowledge in HCI to create artwork.
Thank you. Muhammad Nasir, what about you? Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.
So,
Okay, basically, the most important things that trigger of this kind of exercise where I like to change or to improve the eco-cultural system in our cultural setting in Malaysia, within a new kind of format. These are the suggestions that they try to impose within the art scenes and also the disciplines of aesthetic itself. That's why this kind of projects actually will have a certain kind of progressive elements that will acknowledge a lot of things. And then to me, you can see that there are a lot of potential things that we can grow together in every fields, where the process of creation is not limited for a certain kind of discipline, whatever it is. It's actually a combination of expertise, combination of knowledge, and how we merge this thing to create something beautiful, something interesting, something benefit to the people. Okay, these are the sparks that derive from our intentions, and in order to deliver this thing so that the people will have a certain kind of new alternative or proposal or suggestions into a new era of presentation, whatever it is. Okay, I think that's the most important thing that we try to impose over here. It's not only just in terms of the idea of convergent art and science, actually the idea of the convergence of discipline of knowledge from every field, where everybody of us is a main creator. And then from that created, from that creations, we hope that we can deliver and important things toward the community, toward the socials, whatever it is, so that we can share this thing together. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Encik Nasir. Dr. Rupesh, give us your take on this.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I think our main drive is to work on this project is a very humble and very humanistic approach. We start by a simple friendship that I have with Dr. Hafiz. And I think that is a very important element in any sort of project or collaboration that bringing together different sort of disciplines. We need to understand people, humans, how they respond, and have a mutual understanding of each other's expertise, and also the desires and passions that could come together to pursue certain kind of a goal or aspiration that we are looking for. So in that sense, that's why even our humanistic approach and the sense of connections that we have on a human level, we felt that is what overflowed and inspired the sort of questions that we ask when it comes to the question of AI, technology, objectification, and such. So it's reflected also in the project. So I think we were never concerned about disciplines. We were never concerned about different sort of practices. We were concerned about how do we connect as human beings and what makes us to share this interest and to know each other better through this project. That was the motivation. And I hope it could be beneficial for the rest of the society at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupesh. And you, Dr. Hafiz Izzuddin?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Rupesh has been sharing with me projects that he has in mind, and so he always asks me whether this can be done, whether this is possible with technology. So I've been participating with many hackathons and won many prizes as well. So I like to challenge myself to help others to solve problems, especially technical terms. Even in this installation, we tried to figure out how to make the three screens to communicate efficiently, fast, and robust. So we use database, WebSocket technology, and Wi-Fi to connect these three screens. And even at my home, I've connected all my devices. I've replaced all my devices with Wi-Fi enabled, and we use voice control. So that's my passion, to use technology to solve problems. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope, other people are similarly motivated in coming into the next art science competition. Now, my next question is to the jury members. And this is to help the people in this audience here who are thinking of putting in entries for the next competition. Now, Hasnul and also Clarissa, what do you think? What ways do you think the submissions of the submissions could be made better in terms of denoting that convergence of the art science? I know you've looked at all 65 entries, and I know you have some views on that. So I'll start with Hasnul. If you have a very quick take on what can the entrants make better? Yes, please unmute yourself.
Okay. Maybe a presentation, the presentation aspect. They, instead of just presenting the documents, the visuals, the paperwork, maybe in a way that the winners today have presented their projects, maybe entries in that form. They like 10 minutes presentation of their projects rather than just looking at the thick papers. In that way we can sort of for me, because I came from a visual art background, by having them, by looking at their faces, by looking at their nuances, the way they present it, I can sense their attitudes, their sentiment, their interests, their commitment, their, I don't know, level of engagement, things like that, all the subjectivities, because I like to tap into that as well. So rather than just looking at facts or documentations like this, which can be quite tedious and stressful, I prefer that kind of presentation. Okay, that is more engaging. Another form is, of course, we need to continue doing the interview format, the presentation,
yes.
live presentation,
right.
in a very cordial, not too formal,
right.
not too restrictive, so that they become much more casual, a kind of a cordial kind of presentation, like what we had during the evaluation process. And I like that so much, because I felt like I was a kid learning new things.
Yeah.
So we need to maintain that, and yeah, we need to continue doing that.
And we saw the exhibition, right? The exhibition for the evaluation that we threw across the screen as you were speaking.
And if I may add,
interesting things. Yes.
If I may add, we should also allow the public to see that.
Yeah, okay. As architect Hijaz has mentioned, we will be doing a virtual exhibition of the 13 shortlisted. We couldn't do all the 65 for various reasons, but on the 1st of November, we will have this virtual exhibition. Clarissa, how can the people interested in entering this competition make their entries better?
Initially, I was thinking about doing sort of like a pitch, like Shark Tank style. Style. But I was just thinking that probably that also can be prohibitive, largely because there could be too many entries and it would take a lot of labor to do that. So I was just wondering whether it's possible to do something more like a boot camp, which at least compared to a bigger group of people. And at the same time, have them actually probably use that as an opportunity to develop their ideas and to kind of like drill down the ideas, because there will be the space in which they can critique the ideas together with facilitators and also with other members. And I think one of the weaknesses I noticed in the exhibition is that not everybody who entered actually understood what they are in for. And most of them also have a very probably limited or almost there, but not quite there idea of what they actually plan to do with art science. It's not just about their definition of what art science is, but it's that I think they don't even necessarily have a clue as to what it means. For them, it's just like, oh, maybe it has some sciencey stuff, it has some arty stuff, okay, it's art science, right? But in reality, that's not actually how art science should operate. So probably having a boot camp will allow for that sort of like a critical space, as well as allow you to not have to limit the number of people who can participate. So that could be kind of like a good starting point where they can actually do group collaboration and also group discussion. Maybe it's a good way for people who can't find collaborators to also find collaborators, finding matching interests and as well matching expertise.
Okay, good. Thank you, Clarissa. In fact, you have covered a little bit of what you thought was the art science. Now, Hasno, there is a question here which says, what were the interesting definitions of art science that you have heard? I know we've done this with a few art science people. So maybe Hasno, you want to share a little bit on how are people defining art science? But you notice that in all our, when we did the, when we blasted the competition, we did not define art science, and we deliberately did that because we wanted to have a feel what people thought was art science, and we wanted to make it open, you know, to interpretation. So Hasnul, what were some of the interesting definitions of art science that you have heard?
Well, actually, there was this attachment number 4 from the Secretariat. I think that came along with the guideline, and I saw that. I read that.
Right.
That explains the definition of art science, and that was also given to me before the judging process. So I read through that attachment number 4. I remember I call it attachment number 4, okay, because they didn't mention any reference or sources from that definition. It explains what supposed to be art science and what is not art science. But for me, the interesting part of that attachment, sort of trying to probably not only define, but as a prompt to ask question about art and science. If you ask me about art and science, I will. If you ask me what kind of interpretation that I received, probably I could sense the interpretation through the strategy that they use. I'll give you one example. Using scientific methods that yields very interesting visuals that appear to look like a modern art painting as an art science. That's one way. That's one example that I saw. Another one, using current technology, for example, 3D print as a way to, as an alternative way of coming up with printing products. That is another interpretation or result of the interpretation of art science. Another one, using pigment from stones to come up with an alternative medium for painting. Another example of art science engagement. But those are some examples from the
general examples.
Shortlisted one. But if I may go back to what we were discussing, I think if I can add, I think the most essential thing that we are doing here is questioning a paradigm, questioning a given paradigm, instead of just accepting a given paradigm. For example, the epistemology of knowledge. How do we define knowledge? Do we have to still separate knowledge as art and science? Is it relevant? Is it pertinent with the problems that we are facing now, like COVID and all so on? People having mental health. Is it pertinent to still look at the world from these two different sides? And is it pertinent to translate that into our educational system, where we separate our kids into, oh, these are not clever, these are stupid kids, you go to arts, like what happened to some people, you know.
I think that's wrong.
Your clever one goes to the sciences. No, this
No.
is very, so we need to question this. And by doing this, we don't, I mean, you can't get answers immediately. It can't be, you know, we are experimenting. As you said, we started from 1999 and we are still, you know, learning and experimenting.
Sure. Of
But
course.
but the point is we are questioning instead of just, you know, okay, this is the way we should look at knowledge. No. So the winning works actually question this very foundation, paradigmatic foundation of what we call as knowledge, epistemologically. And I like that. And like Clarissa was saying, going back, I don't use the word going back. I use the word epistemological shift and return. Shift and return. Return, you know, to something that is more sustainable. There's a book I read. It's called Cosmology of Sustainability. In order, you know, we use SDG 1, SDG 2, SDG 3 as a reference, but actually we already have we inherit a cosmology of sustainability, and the winning work actually speaks about this cosmology of sustainability.
Okay,
And
I have to stop you there.
Thank you.
Because I know you are this professor and you can speak for the next 2 hours, but you only have 10 more minutes because I'd like to call on architect Hijaz to weigh in on this.
Okay, thank you. I want to tell you that I and my daughter was the author of that brief explanations. All right, so we did a little bit of research and ding dong together, you know, what it's all about. There'll be more expression to that. But I did give an example, it was not reflected in that brief. Some of what I think the really art science, for Alexander Calder, for example, his work is art science, although the scientific part of it, very little is on gravity and it's on wind, physically on that's going through. There are other artists like Tagliati also. It's a machine kind of sculpture. And that's art science, that combining technology and so on. So I give some example. Fireworks, for example. The beautiful fireworks, sometimes you have fireworks competition. That's art science because the scientific part of it, and it's glorified in a brief moment, that illustrations, image, and so on. So the art science, the content of it can vary. It can be very little of scientific things in it and a large of art form, or the other way around. It doesn't matter, but it has that kind of marriage. That's what I think the explanation about science. But I'm looking forward for somebody design a robotic artist. I think it will come.
It will come. It will
come. But the important thing is, can that robotic artist think for themselves? And I think it's not. They can have the quality of the technology of a person, the stroke of an artist, the way he thinks, and so on, to put into image of, but it cannot make originality. I don't think so. I think human being is still the author of that.
Right.
Thank you.
There will be many people who want to challenge you on that.
Okay, all right.
And not only robots to paint, but robots to write as well. Already now we are getting robots to write scientific papers. And we have seen robots writing results or scientific outputs equivalent to the Nobel Prize, which took 16 years, and they took only 1.5 years, you know, because there's so much more they know today. But yeah, that is a very, very good subject matter. We definitely will have to have a further discourse on this. Now, okay, we've got 5 more minutes, and I really should wrap up. There are some questions to Rupesh and Hafiz, like, is there a conclusion from your project? Very quickly, can you tell us, was there a conclusion from the project?
I think conclusion is somewhat like a very typical conventional research approach. You want a conclusion.
Yes.
The actual interesting question is, what sort of interesting questions and unresolved issues that emerge from the research? That would be an interesting
Yes.
question.
Right.
So to answer directly,
Yeah.
no, looking for a conclusion was never the intention from day one. So
was there a major insight coming out of this? If it's not a conclusion, it's an insight, anything like that?
yes, I mean, first and foremost, we must understand that data itself is subjective. What is being fed is already inherently imbued with some form of biasness.
We know this.
So yes, so in that sense, how do we translate that into the sort of processes and the outcome that comes from the AI? And how can that be translated into thinking about policy making and implementation of AI to resolve real world issues? So I think these are the sort of pressing issues that we realize that needs to be seriously considered when you're thinking about policy making level in terms of how do we use technology, not only for economic gain, but there are other pressing issues in terms of ethical use and how it implements the daily lives of a person and the mental health and such.
Okay, there's some other questions which I think we can answer online as well. From like, can biomimicking be included in the art science interfacing network? Of course, the answer is of course, without going into great detail. Now, I have according to my time, 4 minutes. Yes, 4 minutes to wrap up. Now you saw the polls, and I hope you've been answering the polls. Can I ask IT Secretariat to show us the result of the polls? Okay. Okay, I was very curious as to see what impedes you from producing your artwork. Okay, now most of you thought that no funding was, said that no funding was your biggest, was one of the impediments that is expected. No workspace and tools. I thought that there'd be more on this, but yeah, that's the second highest reason. No time. I have no time as my excuse for a lot of things, but maybe this is true, no time. And then after that, this is important, that you do not understand the convergence of art and science. Now, this is what this discourse is about, and we will have future discourse. So we all better understand what do you mean by the convergence of art and science. We heard both Hasnul and architect Hijaz. No skills, yeah, okay. And not part of my job is also, we thought it'd be nice to throw it in there. But thankfully, I'm sure that's why you are here. It's not because you don't have an interest. Of course, you are listening to this because you have great interest. And thank you for responding to that. The other one was, of course, I'm trying to get people to enter the competition when it comes, when we announce it next year, I think. So what was the answer to that poll, please? Okay, more maybe and yes. I'm very heartened by this, Ijaz. We can be heartened by this. That yes and maybe, you know, is good, very positive, and no. Okay, fair enough. You will not submit anything. So that I think, because it's been a very, very long process in deciding what can we do in terms of art science. And with my background, as I said, I was in the planetarium since 1990, and I had been thinking about the convergence of art science since then, in a very formal manner. It had always been informal. So that was what, 30 years ago, and only now we are coming to this point, we're having a proper discourse on this. So let me close then by reiterating the next steps. I just want to say repeat what architect Ijaz has said, that we are working together with Maybank Foundation to prepare a virtual exhibition that will showcase the 13 finalists that will be launched in, I think the date now is 1st November 2021. Soon, and we will continue to hold engagements like this. And I think together with that exhibition, we will have another discourse. Hopefully this time will be at the international level. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say that our motivation has always been that in talking about art science, it's about the art science approach. You know, we are the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. I mean, for 26, 27 years now, we've always been focusing on the sciences, the natural sciences. It's only 3 years ago that we admitted members in the social sciences, economists, anthropologists. And so at least I believe that the art science approach makes science more relatable. I mean, this has always been important to me, understandable for many people, and to me, human and even humane. I think that's what art science should be. And of course, the art science approach enriches the arts from a very, very different perspective. As I said, I've done this with many artists and scientists since 1997, and this is always what is expressed, and that it enables the arts, it enables the sciences from a very, very different perspective. So with that, and I think I'm almost 1 minute out of time, I'd like to thank all of you lovely, lovely people for joining us this morning. Please do join us in our coming events. So thank you again. Thank you to all the winners. Congratulations to the winners. I think they will now go on to do residency at the places that they have opted for. The one thing, the prize that we had that was no winner was we wanted the popular artwork from the public point of view, but because there was no physical exhibition, we didn't have that third prize. So maybe when we have it in next year, we'll have 3 prizes instead of just 2. So peoples, thank you so much and have a lovely weekend. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Datuk Seri Dr. Mazlan Osman. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have come to an end of this webinar. We would like to thank our moderator and speakers for sharing your knowledge and expertise, as well as to you yang berusaha AR Hijaz. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. So don't forget to follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Academy Science Malaysia and ASM Art Science, for more upcoming webinars from us. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you, everyone.